Yes. You have some doubts in Forest Conservation Act. Yeah. Not reservation. Yeah. Right. Yeah. What are those doubts? I mean, you don't know what your doubts are. Very good. But why do you want to read Forest Conservation Act and all the things? A lot of free time? No, not everything needs to be read. You don't have to read everything. You only read those things which are important from your examination point of view. Nowadays, what the UPSC is asking is, in your prelims, they are asking some of these questions. But they will not go too deep into the details also. Even if they are going too much into the details, you cannot read everything. That is what you have to remember. You have to be very specific. Contradiction between, in what sense, the kind of contradiction you are talking about? You don't know. Okay, let me see it and I'll tell you tomorrow then. Right? So yesterday we were continuing with our discussion of PLI only. Today also, if you happen to see in Hindu newspaper, there was this argument and counter argument regarding the PLIs. Have you seen Hindu today? No. Okay. In what way rain is related to Hindu? Right. Very good. Tomorrow when the question asked, write the same answer. I know the question was asked in the examination. I know that it was there in Hindu, but on the day it was raining, so I could not read the article. So Mr. Stupid Examiner, give me marks also. Right? So anyway, this is what we were discussing about PLI yesterday. So what we have said is that at the end of the day, when the government is giving all these tariffs, when the government is giving all these tariff concessions as part of production linked incentives, who will ultimately be paying the price? It is the consumers. It is the consumers who will pay the price. Yesterday we have stopped at a place wherein we spoke about this what happened after the introduction of the PLI scheme in the mobile manufacturing sector. We said that with the introduction of PLI scheme, there is definitely improvement in exports from $1.6 billion to $2.7 billion. But what you must remember here is that these exports were increasing even before the introduction of PLI also. That is what you have to write. Even though there was a substantial increase in the export of these mobile phones, even though there was substantial increase in the export of these mobile phones, they were going up even before the introduction of PIL. They were going up even before the introduction of this PLI scheme. That's what it says. Yeah, this is no, see, normally whenever they conduct research, they take one particular sector and they will find out what is the impact of this sector, what is the impact of that particular scheme on this sector, and they will try to generalize it. In mathematics we call it as extrapolation, right? So Raghuram Rajan and others, they have conducted research on this mobile technologies, and they were trying to link it to the other sectors also by extrapolating the findings to the other sector, right? And with the introduction of this PIL, imports also have increased. Imports also have increased substantially. What is the reason why these imports have gone up? Pardon? Why? Because it is only assemble in India, not make in India. Assemble in India. So you are importing the raw material from other countries, and what you are doing is that you are ending up with value addition in India by integrating all those imports. That is the reason why imports also have gone up. Next, and what is the other consequence of this scheme? Next important consequence of this scheme is that it led to huge amount of increase in current account deficit also. Obviously, what happens when imports increase at a much rapid rate than exports? It leads to increase in current account deficit also, right? So this is about the research they have conducted. Now let us look at the analysis. Let us look at the analysis of this PLI scheme. On the basis of the research and the data that is available with us, let us look at the analysis. So what do we say here? First and foremost, what we can say here is that definitely it has improved output. It has improved output. It has definitely improved output. It has also increased exports. It has also increased exports. It has also increased exports. But when we look at the other side, that is, when we look at the negative consequences, what are they? First and foremost, today's Hindu article also pointed out, these kind of schemes benefit mostly large producers. They benefit mostly large producers. They benefit mostly large producers. So, small scale industries, MSMEs, we call them as MSMEs, may not benefit out of these schemes. May not benefit out of these schemes. Because you can benefit out of these schemes only when your output is much larger, your exports are also very high. When your output is much larger and your exports are also very high. So it may not benefit the MSMEs. Second consequence is that it may not result in job creation. It may not result in job creation. It may not result in job creation. That is, it cannot lead to job-led growth. It may not result in job creation. Why? Because in large-scale industries, employment potential is very less. That is what you write. Yeah, that is why you are not producing in India, you are only assembling. How many people you want? And on top of it, automation. Right? Why? Because one large-scale industries, employment potential is very less, because they are all capital-intensive industries. In large-scale industries, employment potential is very less. In large-scale industries, employment potential is very less, because they are all capital-intensive industries. They are all capital-intensive industries. And on top of it, most these schemes are benefiting the service sector more than the manufacturing sector. These schemes are benefiting the service sector more than the manufacturing sector. They are benefiting the service sector more than the manufacturing sector. So, as we know, in service sector, employment potential is very, very less. In service sector, employment potential is very, very less. Next problem with this scheme, it can lead to crony capitalism. CRY, crony capitalism. It can result in crony capitalism. CRONY, crony capitalism. Why? Because big industrialists, might join hands with big industrialists, might join hands with bureaucracy. They might join hands with the bureaucracy to bend rules and regulations in their favor. To bend rules and regulations in their favor. Right? It can lead to crony capitalism. 6% is a huge amount of money. Right? 6% is a huge amount of money. Next one is the subsidy bill of the government will go up. 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 So what do you mean by subsidy bill of the government? For example, if you're, what are your exports now? Around $400 billion. Out of which 6% means 24, right? $24 billion, which is equal to, in terms of rupees, $1 billion equal to how much? If $1 equal to 80 rupees, $1 billion is equal to 8,000 crores, right? 8,000 crores. And 24 into 8,000 crores, $1,92,000 crores. That is the amount of subsidy given by the government. Huge amount of subsidy. Right? Very simple. That is the amount of subsidy will be given by the government. 1,82,000 crores. 92. Thank you very much. Right? Okay, let us take it as around 2 lakh crores, because recently our exports were $420 billion, so we'll take it as around 2 lakh crores, right? So coming back here, 2 lakh crores is a huge amount of subsidy, taxpayers' money, 2 lakh crores of rupees taxpayers' money. And on the other hand, what is the amount of money spent by the government on education and health? 70,000 crores, 80,000 crores. That is where the next point you will write. In a poor country like India, in a developing country like India, 2 lakh crores of rupees of subsidy given to industrialists is a huge amount of subsidy. It is a huge amount of subsidy. And apart from this, here, 2 lakh crores of subsidies given to industrial sector is a huge amount of subsidy. Added to that, the government is also losing every year around 1.8 lakh crores. 1.8 lakh crores due to a drastic cut in corporate tax rates. Government is losing around 1.8 lakh crores due to drastic reduction in corporate taxes in 2019. So combined together, how much it will be? 4 lakh crores. Opportunity cost is very high. 4 lakh crores. Opportunity cost is very high, especially in a developing country like India. What do you mean by opportunity cost? Imagine these 4 lakh crores of rupees being spent on improving infrastructure. That is what you write. Had the government spent these 4 lakh crores of rupees on improving infrastructure, had the government spent these 4 lakh crores of rupees on infrastructure, it would have a much higher multiplier effect. It would have a much higher multiplier effect on private investment. it would have much higher multiplier effect on private investment. What do you mean by that? Much higher multiplier effect on private investment. What is this multiplier effect? Multiplier means multiply, I know that one. All of you are becoming so intelligent every day. I'm really feeling jealous of your intelligence. Multiplier means multiply, right? And you are explaining me with the help of your hands also. What is this multiply? Right? So this multiplier effect is one which we talk about in economics. John Maynard Keynes was the first person to talk about this multiplier effect of public investment. So if the government is investing 100 rupees, then it can result in 1000 rupees of private sector investment. 10% will be the multiplier, 10 times will be the multiplier effect. If the government invests 100 rupees, it could result in say 1000 rupees investment by the private sector. That is what Keynes called it as investment multiplier. Public investment. That is what he calls it as investment multiplier. Now, what the government right now is doing, they are using this route of subsidies to revive private sector investment, like giving 1.8 lakh crores tax subsidies and around 2 lakh crores PLI scheme. So combined together for around 4 lakh crores. Had the government used the same amount of money to invest in public infrastructure, it would have resulted in huge amount of increase in the private sector investment than these subsidies. That is what the statement we are trying to say here, right? Had the government used that 4 lakh crores of rupees to build infrastructure, to improve infrastructure, take the case of ports in India, as we studied, as we discussed also some time back, the loading and unloading time for ports in India is around 28 days, whereas in the United States of America it is less than 24 hours. If you have used that 4 lakh crores of rupees to improve the ports, to improve the road connectivity, to reduce the cost of production by reducing the prices of petroleum products, that would have resulted in more private sector investment than giving these subsidies. That is what we are saying. Opportunity cost is very, very high. Next, another important point that we have to note here is that in the last 3 years, there is no significant increase in private sector investment. There is no significant increase in private sector investment. In spite of there is no significant increase in the private sector investment in spite of this PLI scheme. In spite of the fact that this PLI scheme has been extended to almost every sector. In spite of the fact that this scheme has been extended to almost every sector, including service sector. Yeah. Yes. That is what we'll talk about. Next point, we'll talk about all those things. So what if you look at this in the last 2-3 years, we have not seen any significant improvement in the private sector investment thanks to this scheme. We can say that till last year it was Corona, but this year there is no Corona. In spite of that, there is no significant improvement in the private sector investment. What is the reason why there is no significant increment in the private sector investment in spite of the government coming out with this kind of PLI schemes? The other day you must have seen our finance minister, while addressing the industrialists, she said that these industries are like Hanuman, who do not realize their potential and they must invest. That is what she said. If they are Hanuman, what is she? Lankini or Surpanika? Right. So it is very easy to talk about all these things, right? I hope nobody will be putting these things in public. right? Section 124A, right? It is very easy. What she is trying to say here is that our private sector, like Hanuman, do not know their true potential, right? That is what you study in Ramayana also. Ramayana says that Hanuman got a curse from a rishi that unless someone comes and praises him, he will not be able to know his true potential. So that is what our finance minister was also trying to say. She was trying to say that our industry is as efficient as their Western counterparts. It is as competitive as their Western counterparts. The only thing is that they have to realize the fact that they are efficient also. And that is what she was trying to say. They must realize their potential. And she said that she had given them so many soaps. This PLI scheme she mentioned, corporate tax cuts she has mentioned, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, she has mentioned. And she said that she is defending them everywhere. The government policy itself is privatization only, giving importance to private sector. In spite of all these things, she was asking the industrial sector why they are not investing. That is what our next point will be, right? So what we have seen is that all over the world, what we have seen is that these kind of production distortion schemes, can only be a temporary solution. Production distortion schemes can only be a temporary solution and may not be efficient also. They can only be a temporary solution but may not be, and at the same time may not be efficient also. For example, United States of America, USA, recently had given the same kind of incentives for semiconductor industry. In United States of America recently, same kind of incentives for semiconductor industry, semiconductor chips, the potato chips, right? Semiconductor industry. Right, please don't write potato chips, you will be writing also, right? So semiconductor industry, but it did not result in any significant improvement in production. It did not result in any significant improvement in production, any significant improvement in output. Right? So, as we know, after this corona crisis, the entire world was facing this severe shortage of semiconductors. Right? That is the reason why in India, even though there is huge amount of demand for cars, these car manufacturing automobile companies cannot produce according to the demand that is being raised because of the lack of availability of this semiconductor. Same is the case with the mobile phones also. So that is the reason why in United States of America, they wanted to reduce their dependence on China. China is the country that is almost the leader in the semiconductors. Thanks to the supply side bottlenecks, entire world was facing these shortages. So America was trying to encourage its domestic producers, but it did not result in any improvement. Why? Because these kind of incentives can work only when you have a proper industrial base. That is what you write. These kind of incentives can work when the country has a proper manufacturing base. These kind of incentives can work only when the country has a proper manufacturing base. Right? So, why this PLI scheme may not be as successful as the government has imagined in India? Because we don't have proper manufacturing base. And when do the industrialists invest? The next question that we have to ask is, when do the industrialists invest? all the things that we have spoken about 2 days back. When do they invest? First one is availability of raw material. That is what you write. Investment is possible only when one, availability of raw material. Second, manpower. Availability of manpower. Third, cost of credit. Cost of credit. The cost of credit should be very less. Fourth, land. Availability of land. Availability of land. Fifth, technology. Technology. Sixth, R&D, research and development. Research and development. Seventh, opportunity for exports. For example, what is the basic problem with India? What is the basic issue with India here? What is the basic issue with India? Simple. India has not signed most of these multilateral trade agreements. For example, RCEP. It was a golden opportunity for India. Since we could not sign RCEP, it becomes almost very, very difficult for India to export its products to these members of RCEP countries without inviting more tariffs, more customs and excise duties. The question was asked, please remember all of them were asked in your GS papers only, whatever we are discussing. Whatever the reasons given by the government, at the end of the day, we are only at a losing position. Why? Because right now India is in a desperate need to sign as many bilateral treaties as it can with other countries. Being a part of a treaty which has around 40-50 countries, which covers around 1/3 of the global output, is it good, or signing treaties with small islands? That is what. Yes. Pardon? If that is what we say at the end of the day, you have to do the cost benefit analysis. It might impact our industry in the short term in an adverse manner. In the long term, you are going to benefit out of it. Are you willing to take the cost in the short term for more gains in the long term, or are you willing to forego the gains in the long term for short term benefits? That is what the public policy is all about. And the government of India and the bureaucracy, and of course the political executive coming under the severe pressure from the domestic companies, has decided not to become part of RCEP. And that is why even now also you can see in the government there is so much of a realization of the fact that they had committed a blunder by not being part of RCEP. The government keeps on saying, RBI governor, if financial advisors, finance secretary, recently finance secretary also has said that not signing RCEP was not a right thing at that point of time. He cannot say that it was a blunder. Obviously you are a bureaucrat. So that is what, these are all the factors that will decide whether you invest or not. And the last one that comes is government policies, like these tax cuts or PLI schemes. Government policies, right? Yeah. If you have to sign bilateral agreements, you have to sign bilateral agreements with 200 countries. And when the other country is coming to you, they will also try to protect their interests. So you have to give more. If you have to get something from them, you have to give them more also. On the other hand, they will say a block of 50 countries. If you are signing it, you are signing only 4 agreements. Yes, obviously, that is the reason why in these multilateral agreements, there comes a trade-off. wherein the countries are willing to give up something for the overall benefit of everything. It is always better. As we have seen, the basic problem here is that WTO has been a failure, World Trade Organization. The question that might come in this year in the mains examination also. It has been a failure that has forced the countries around the world to opt for these what we call customs unions and trade unions. And India got a big opportunity with RCEP, and thanks to the short-sightedness of our political executive. As I said, Gujaratis are their traders, that they are not industrialists. Our Prime Minister is also a Gujarati. He was looking at RCEP only from the short-term cost-benefit analysis. It might be, adverse effect on our industry in the short term, but in the long term, you would have benefited a lot about it. Now the government has literally was eating the humble pie, and they are more aggressive in signing bilateral treaties. That is what we will be discussing, tomorrow also as part of Shanghai, Cooperation Organization also. Tomorrow we will see SCO, right? That is what at the end of the day, this one will come towards the end. Now the government is making the first thing. When you don't have any of these things, will it benefit? Very simple. And that is the reason why this PLI scheme, even in the short term also, has not really benefited the industry. And who have benefited? Only big industrialists. Just like in GST also, the input tax credit has only benefited the big industrialists. They made a huge amount of what we call windfall gains. MSMEs are the ones which have been completely wiped out of this GST. In the same manner, this PLI scheme is only benefiting big multinational companies to make more profits. Beyond that, it has not really benefited the economy. That is where I think we can stop, right? And tomorrow we will continue with another interesting topic, right? As usual, I will come back in less than 30 seconds, right?